Hi, my name is RQLite, and I just wanted to go over the basics of what I use and maybe what's going on with, maybe Linux or the programming language Go, or, just sort of what this is about, generally speaking. I won't go into too much coding probably this video, just because I think a lot of people, when I make videos about specific things, they're not always looking to learn about something specific. A lot of times they're looking for just a general explanation for things, sort of, so that they can learn and use that for whatever it is they like doing. I guess where I should probably just explain kind of what I know about computers, sort of, which isn't too deep of what it's all about, but I'll just explain kind of what I know. Basically, you have your computer. Let's just, I guess, name this computer PC, and within that PC, you would have your operating system, let's say. Right? And that basically is sort of your environment, or at least part of what you use in order to do what you need to do on your computer. And what does that mean? It basically means it's a group of processes that keep your computer kind of going. If we go to like system monitor and we go to processes, there's all these big processes that are running. They're having it do, every little thing that it needs to do. And so these are sort of, in a way, how you interact with your system. So if you take out Cinnamon, which is kind of like your GUI, so to speak, on your operating system, then this all just kind of disappears. So what kind of makes up an operating system, in a sense? Well, if we switch this to operating system, basically what you have is, your different processes. Let's say processes, which is like what I showed you with the system resources, and then kind of what you have, just naming it as just processes is kind of really general. There's drivers, there's all sorts of resources that your computer utilizes, like a browser or whatever, that it sort of processes in and out to be able to read what's going on. If you have your mouse or whatever, and it needs to pick up on certain events for clicks and everything, that all gets registered into your operating system that runs the processes that allows you to make it all work together. I guess kind of more internally, you have your kernel, which you can think of it as, I guess you could say, the brain of your operating system. It's basically the core that runs basic processes, that knows the load certain modules, that then allows you to have access to your drivers and these programs and everything. And you could think about it as something that just runs through all these different processes at once, and it may delegate them to certain cores and everything, so So when you look at resources, you have your CPUs, you have your memory, which is RAM. It's your soft memory. It's stuff that gets quickly picked up on your system. So let's say your application is a browser, and the last website you visited may be saved on there. Well, that may be saved in RAM, so that your computer quickly loaded up. The stuff that's loaded as far as hard memory is your hard drive, and that will more or less from here it would be your swap. Swap kind of is dependent upon your RAM, but it pulls up memory from your hard drive that gets used when your RAM is full. So how does this all work together, sort of? Basically, when you run a program, you have your CPUs and you have your RAM. Your CPUs basically do the processing power. So anything that your program may need to calculate or move or do whatever, your CPUs are going to be the ones that are going to do that processing. If it's another program that's entirely needs to load, like here, where it's 3.3 gig, and if I hit, let's say Visual Studio, all of a sudden you're going to see this jump up. Because this is something that needs to be loaded into quick memory, so that as you code or do whatever in here, it will take up that space so that you can pull up the things or resources that you need right away. And your CPUs are the ones, so as you code certain programs or whatever it is you're doing, or extensions are running, need to be processed or have certain kind of logic to them, your CPUs are going to be the ones that are going to be, processing those logical routines or whatever it is that needs to run. So, how does this fit into, let's say, your browser? Well, your browser takes up a certain amount of RAM because it needs to be loaded so that when you go to your bookmarks or whatever it is, it's quick, it's easy, you don't really notice the load time. And then if you run JavaScript in your browser or whatever it is, then your CPUs get eaten up to process that JavaScript. And so that's sort of kind of how you run your operating system and your system kind of as a whole. As far as doing stuff on here, obviously a lot of this is JavaScript, and so your CPUs get used up, and sometimes your GPU is connected to your video card. Sometimes they share processes, some processes don't run on GPUs. So you just sort of have to think about it as CPUs and GPUs are a way to go through logic. Your RAM and hard drive are a way to deal with things that need a load. And your kernel is something that, it's just something, on the user end of things, not on a real technical end, all you really care about are drivers, and the kernel, if you update your kernel, you'll get certain drivers, certain things are compatible with certain kernels. And so that's, I don't know if there's anything on here for, I'm going to show my system info, but yeah. So when you update it to 5 point whatever, you may get more drivers for certain devices. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's because I updated some, it doesn't recognize my Google Buds. I don't know what happened. I don't know if that's the Bluetooth, the Blue Man application, or what, but it's just not recognizing it whatsoever. And that could be some update or whatever it is, or it could have something to do with the kernel. I really don't know. So what does that have to do with your operating system? So if we look back on operating systems, Basically, you sort of have your kernel, and then you also have your GUI to a certain degree. Your GUI, I guess you could kind of say, is like how kind of like Cinnamon is mine on here because I'm using Linux Mint. And so when you go to Linux Mint, they have all these different kind of versions of it, and they will generally run down what it is they do, and Ubuntu is what it depends on. So Ubuntu is sort of the operating system. The Cinnamon, Mate, XFCE are sort of, I guess you could say, the GUI or the manager, whatever you want to call it. And that's what you kind of visually deal with on top of Ubuntu. Because Ubuntu can just be the operating system itself. These are, I guess you could say, what packages they also use too. But they're generally what you see. You don't necessarily see Cinnamon itself, but you see the packages that it provides, the themes, all sorts of stuff. And so that's sort of what you're kind of dealing with. Some have the GTK, some are KD is Plasma. There's just a whole bunch of different kinds that are built up on Ubuntu. And so what I mean, XFCE has its own kind of applications. It also tends to be less memory intensive, just because it may use a different kind of GUI manager or have run different kind of applications. Some of them have different menus. You can still update and change it if you want, but that's just part of when you choose one of these editions. Mate tends to have not quite as pretty stuff, uses a little bit more resources than XFCE. So I'm guessing XFCE, even though I didn't try it yet on this version, I'm guessing it runs like 1.5 gig. I'm guessing Mate probably is like 2 point whatever, and Cinnamon is obviously it's around 3. And Windows 11 for me personally, it's around 6 gig. So that's generally, for my taste of things, what Linux is sort of about. There's obviously a lot more to that. I don't dig too much more into the system or into the files or the registers or whatever. I don't get that deep with it, but that's part of what you need to know. The other part is, the different terminals you may use. They have different kind of commands. Mac OS sort of uses the same commands as Linux because it's like a Unix thing, but there's a whole history between Unix and Linux, and they're not the same thing. But Linux is sort of, it's not built on top of it, but it's built to emulate it, sort of, in a sense. Depends, I guess, what I meant by emulate, but it's a separate thing, and it works a bit differently, but tends to work a lot bit the same. But don't confuse the two. Don't say they're the same thing. Some people really care about that. I don't know. I just program in Go, which installs on any of the architectures. I mean, the underneath, as far as for loops and memory matter. If you pick 64-bit, or if you pick 86 or whatever it is that you're running, there may be a lot of differences, but that's just but most people are going to do 64-bit, and you're going to choose the latest Mint, and so it kind of doesn't matter. If you use an older computer, obviously that matters to you. Do whatever it is you need to do. So that's kind of in a nutshell Linux. There's all the commands that go along with it. Well, yeah. So usually with Linux, in order to install something, you tend to need PPAs, like a software manager, and you can do it through the Linux thing. Oh no, this is the store crapola. Software sources. So yeah, you have to install certain PPAs so that you can download certain kind of software and so on and so forth. That's just sort of how you deal with that in Linux. In Windows, you don't so much have to think about that. You can't always run Windows programs on Linux. There's things like Wine that make that a little bit easier, but it doesn't always run all the programs. But it runs a lot, and it's just kind of growing. So why do I use Linux, I guess, is a shtick of it. Well, part of it's the memory, because I literally cannot, on 12 gigs of RAM, on Windows 11, run Chrome, VS Code, and OBS. Can't do it. It just shuts off. Literally can't do it. And I've done optimizations through Windows where you change the cache and the page index and everything. I've tried it all and it doesn't do it. So I have to use Linux for this type of stuff. I have to, literally. Another reason is it's gotten a lot better. Before, stuff would happen, you'd lose your sound, you lose this, that, and other thing, and it's gotten way more stable, so I just don't think about that. With VS Code, with the debugger, it was already put together, and I just didn't have to do anything with Go, which was nice. Another reason is I'm used to the terminal, so I know the commands and everything, and so it's just way easier. You can do these commands in Windows, so to speak, but there's a lot of things you can't do in Windows that doesn't quite work as well. In Linux, I can edit my machine and do all sorts of stuff. Change effects. If I wanted this, that, and the other thing. Resizing tile windows. You could download other ones, but you could just do little things. You could also make it mirror. Or there's certain ones where you could kind of move it around all weird like and everything. I haven't installed this here. Maybe I will in the future. I don't know. You do different themes. You can change the color of all the folders and all that, and the actual theme of the site. So you could do that. Just change everything. Give it a pink kind of primary color. I don't know. Not really stuff I totally use a lot, but it's something that you can use. You can download other people's ones, I guess. Like this one. That one looks nice, I guess. You can just change it up on the fly. And, did I even install that one yet? Elegance? Is that what this is? Oh, yeah. You can do all that. You can change the theme of your terminals. There's one, I don't know if I installed it. No, I didn't install it. Okay. Called terminology. Not that I really use it that much, but it is kind of nice. Analogy. Yeah. Which I kind of like a little bit. I'll show you why. I think I have shown it in other videos, but you know, I just mean you can customize the heck out of it, and it's just really nice that way. And you know, see, and then there it is. Why is that so small? It's really weird. Oh, that's fucking huge. Change the theme of it. You could have a background. You make it translucent. You change the color of it. I don't know. You do all sorts of stuff. Why did I really make this way too big? And then if you wanted, you do like YouTube fireplace. Wanted something that just runs over a fireplace. You could. There's even a way to do a video inside of this, actually. I just let's see where we're at. There's also Gawk, which I remember. Drop down terminal, which is pretty slick. I personally like it a lot, but I mostly use the VS Code one, to be honest, when I code. F12 to use it. Oh, see, there you go. Yeah. Whatever. And so everything's just quick and easy on Linux, and that's just kind of what I like about it. You can customize little things. So yeah, that's basically Linux and sort of why I use it. I mostly use the VS Code for the coding part, just because it is the debugger that's visual. You can use Delve, which can be all through the terminal using Vim or whatever. You could do that too. I just like the idea of just setting it up and just running it, and command launchpad not an executable file. Oh, because it's not a server. My thing's usually set up for a server. Whatever. you can debug this easily, or if you really, I don't even know if I have it installed on here. Vim, which I'm not the biggest fan of. I'll show you generally how to kind of use it. We can install it, sure. It's just another text editor thing. I guess there's no launching it per se, you just use the terminal. So let's try to find some files. Here you go. Probably not good to have a background like that. Okay. So cd test, I guess. And then let's say you want to edit one of these files, you do vim go, or I guess you have to do it through this way. I don't know why. That's kind of weird, but whatever. Okay. Vim and go. Oh, you have your Vim stuff. And so, if you want to, I don't know, change some part of the file, you hit A in order to edit, and see it says insert, and you do your stuff. New, and then when you're done, you hit escape to get out of insert mode, so that you can still move around and do whatever. And I think it was go run that go. Oh, that's right, I don't have the go vim stuff, so I'd have to do let me get out of this. Yeah. So you do semicolon Q. I thought it was. I don't know, was it W? Okay, so it's run. And then you hit Q, so that it saves it. And then you would run your program, or you could download all the GoVim packages, things. I don't know, that's Vim. I'm just not a fan. And you could have different file managers and all that jazz if you wanted. So like if you don't like this plain Jane stuff, one really quick one is Thunder or something. Thunderbird's email. Or no, it's Dolphin. Let's see. I don't know if I have the PPAs for it. Yeah, Dolphin. If I even have, is that what that is? No. So if you download Dolphin, that's a whole different kind of file manager system thing, and that will complete. I think. Oh, Nemo is what this is. Oh, Thunder was the one So I have this, which is Nemo. Launch Thunder. It's a little bit quicker. Or rather, it should be. Something eat up all my resources. Oh, but it's Linux. Ain't none eating up my resources. I mean, it's pretty quick as far as how it runs, as opposed to this one where you do get a few more things, but it's just a hair slower. That's all. They all have their own different thing. What was Dolphin? Yeah, Dolphin I kind of had liked because you can do a split. So then you can move files over really easily, which I thought was actually really useful. You know, so if I want to move this over, it's nice. I kind of like that. If you want to change the menu, you can do that too. There's a way to do it through the terminal. You just gotta Google it and all that. But you can change kind of how it looks and the editor for it. All sorts of stuff. So anyways, I guess that's more than enough about Linux per se. If you have Linux, you have the VS Code. I use the SQLite thing, which that's just to look up database stuff for SQLite. I do have to, though, find out more about this RQLite. This thing looks wickedly good. Like, wickedly good. So, database layer written in Go on top of, no, it is RS, not RS. I'm looking for RSQL. Is that what that is? It was RSQL. I thought it was. Not Gore. Or is it RQLite? Yeah, I think it was this. Your relational database. Okay, so it's called RQLite, not RSQLite. Pretty slick. Does this distributed relational database stuff, and they have videos on it. They use Raft, which is sort of how it knows to do distributed stuff with it. And it has encryption and all that stuff. I really want to dig into that. Even has the discussions on it. Like, this is my next thing. So yeah, that's what I use for the database stuff. You just do open. I don't think I remember where a database is exactly. I only usually know if I'm actually in it. Yeah. Oh, that one doesn't actually have anything in it, of course. This one does. So you can do create a table, we just create a table. It'll ask you for the fields and all that. Browse the data that's inside of it. You just skip through here to go through all the different tables. I personally like it a lot. Simple, it's easy. You can run your SQL, do whatever. And SQLite isn't a server, so you don't have to install all this shit. And if it's written in Go for the layer, then you definitely don't have to install a bunch of stuff. You just install the binary, or you just pull it into Go. Yeah, that's just generally what I use and sort of how your system works. And I think I went over Go a few times, to be honest. Yeah. Yeah, I guess if you have any questions, please let me know. All right. Thank you.